Mara stood at the edge of the old wooden depot, holding a small paper in her hands. The wind moved the dust along the ground, and the sound of the train had already faded into the distance. People who came with hope had left with smiles or tears, but now the place felt empty. Mara was still there, and she did not know where she belonged anymore. She had traveled far to reach this town. The journey took many days, and every mile was filled with thoughts of a new life. The letters she had received before the trip were kind and careful. They spoke of a small house, honest work, and a future built together. Mara believed those words. She packed her clothes, her books, and a few memories into one trunk and left everything else behind. Now, that trunk sat beside her, closed and quiet, just like her heart. The depot clerk stood near the desk, tapping his fingers. He looked at Mara with little interest, as if she were just another task left unfinished. He cleared his throat and spoke in a dry voice. The man who requested her had sent a letter that morning. He wrote that he had changed his mind. He did not want a wife anymore. The words stayed in the air, heavy and cold. Mara did not cry. She did not shout. She folded the paper carefully and placed it back into her pocket. Her hands shook, but she kept them close to her body. She asked the clerk what would happen next. He told her that she would be sent back on the next train. Until then, she would wait here. Wait. That was all she seemed to do now. She sat on a bench near the wall and watched the light move across the floor. Her thoughts went back to the beginning. She remembered sitting at a small table, writing her reply to the first letter. She remembered the hope she felt when the answer came. She remembered telling herself that courage meant moving forward, even when fear followed. But fear felt stronger now. The town around the depot was quiet. A few wagons passed, and people walked by without stopping. Some glanced at her trunk and looked away. Others did not notice her at all. Mara felt invisible, yet exposed at the same time. She thought about returning. Going back would mean facing questions she could not answer. It would mean admitting that her dream had failed before it even began. She wondered if she had been foolish to believe in words written by someone she never met. The sun began to lower, painting the sky with soft colors. The clerk locked a drawer and told Mara he would be back later. He left her with a small lantern and no comfort. The depot became even quieter. Mara stood and walked a few steps outside. The air felt cooler. She placed her hand on the trunk. It was worn from travel, with scratches and faded marks. It carried her past and the future she hoped for. She did not know what to do with it now. She whispered to herself that she would be strong. She had crossed land and fear before. She would survive this too. Still, her chest felt tight, and the silence around her pressed in. As the light faded, footsteps sounded on the wooden platform. Mara turned, unsure of who might come at such a time. A man walked toward the depot, slow and steady. He wore a wide hat and simple clothes marked by dust and work. His presence felt calm, like he belonged to the land around him. He stopped near the clerk's desk and looked around. His eyes then rested on Mara and her trunk. He did not stare, but he noticed. After a moment, he asked the clerk, who had just returned, about the last train. His voice was low and even. The clerk explained that the trains were done for the day. He then mentioned Mara, pointing in her direction as if she were part of the building. He told the man her story in a short and careless way. The man listened. He did not interrupt. His eyes returned to Mara, and this time, there was something thoughtful in his expression. Mara felt his gaze and straightened her back. She was tired of feeling small. If she had to leave, she would do so with dignity. She met his eyes for a brief moment, then looked away. The man nodded once, as if deciding something within himself. He stepped closer, stopping a few feet away. He did not speak to her yet. Instead, he looked at the trunk, then at the darkening sky. Mara did not know why, but she felt that something had shifted. The air seemed different, charged with a quiet change she could not name. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from uncertainty. She did not know this man. She did not know what he wanted or why he cared. All she knew was that she was no longer completely alone at the depot. And for the first time since the letter arrived, that thought gave her a small sense of warmth. The man stood near the depot desk, his boots firm on the wooden floor. His name was Tom, though Mara did not know that yet. He had come to town to deliver supplies and planned to leave before night fully settled. But the sight of the woman and her lone trunk held him in place longer than he expected. Tom listened as the clerk spoke again, repeating the story with little care. A woman sent for marriage. A man who changed his mind. A return planned for the morning. To the clerk, it was simple business. To Tom, it felt heavier than that. He looked at Mara more closely. She was not crying or begging. She stood quiet and still, like someone who had already faced many hard moments. Her dress was plain but clean. Her hands were rough from travel, not from comfort. She did not look weak. She looked tired. Tom had grown up around people who ran from responsibility. He knew the look of those left behind. Something about Mara reminded him of his mother, who once waited at a gate that never opened. That memory stirred inside him, slow and deep. The clerk cleared his throat and asked Tom if he needed anything else. Tom shook his head, but he did not leave. Instead, he stepped closer to Mara, careful not to startle her. He spoke calmly, his voice steady. He asked her name. Mara answered after a moment. She said it softly, but clearly. Tom nodded, as if confirming something important. He asked if she had eaten. The question surprised her. She shook her head. The day had passed without food, but she had not noticed until that moment. Tom reached into his bag and pulled out a small wrapped loaf. He offered it without pushing. Mara hesitated, then accepted. She thanked him. The simple kindness made her chest feel tight. She ate slowly, standing beside her trunk while Tom waited without watching her too closely. The clerk grew restless and went back to his papers. The depot felt like it held only 2 people now. Tom asked where Mara had come from. She told him about her town, her long journey, and the letters that led her here. She spoke without anger. Her voice carried disappointment, but also strength. Tom listened carefully. He did not rush her words. He told her his name and said he owned a small ranch not far from town. He lived alone, working the land and caring for his animals. He did not complain, but there was a quiet truth in his voice. Life had been steady, but lonely. Mara nodded, unsure why he was telling her this. She did not want to assume anything. She had learned that hope could be fragile. The sun had fully set now. The lantern cast soft light across the floor. Outside, night insects began their song. The world moved on, even as Mara felt stuck between paths. Tom looked at the trunk again. It was clear that it held all Mara had left. He imagined it being sent back without care, tossed like cargo. The thought made his jaw tighten. He spoke again, slower this time. He said that he believed people deserved a fair chance. He said that a promise should mean something. He did not mention marriage or rescue. He only spoke of choice. Mara listened, her heart beating faster. She wondered what he was leading toward, but she stayed quiet. She had learned not to interrupt moments that mattered. Tom took a breath and made a decision that had been forming since he first saw her standing alone. He turned to the clerk and spoke clearly. He said that the woman would not be returning. He said that she was with him. The clerk looked up, surprised. He asked Tom to explain. Tom did not raise his voice. He simply said that Mara was his wife. The words landed hard in the quiet room. Mara froze. Her mind raced, trying to understand what she had just heard. She looked at Tom, her eyes wide with confusion. He met her gaze, calm and steady, as if asking her to trust him for just a moment. The clerk studied them both. He asked for proof. Tom reached into his coat and placed a folded paper on the desk. It was a land record with his name. He spoke with confidence, saying that his word was enough in this town. The clerk hesitated, then sighed. He did not care enough to argue. He pushed the return papers aside and waved his hand. He said it was settled. He told them to leave before he changed his mind. Tom picked up the trunk with ease. The action felt natural, as if he had carried it many times before. Mara stood still, unsure if her legs would move. Everything felt unreal. Tom paused and looked at her. He did not pull or rush her. He simply waited. Mara took a step forward. Then, another. Each step felt like crossing a bridge she could not see. She followed him out of the depot into the cool night air. They walked a short distance before Tom stopped. He set the trunk down gently and turned to face her. He spoke honestly. He said that he did not mean to frighten her. He said that he would never force her into anything. He explained that he only wanted to stop her from being sent away like an object. He told her she could leave at any time. He said he would help her find work or a safe place if she wished. The choice would always be hers. Mara listened, her breath uneven. She realized that he had given her something rare. Respect. He had spoken words in public, but now he offered truth in private. She thanked him. Her voice shook, but her eyes were clear. She said she needed time to think. Tom nodded and said that was fair. They stood there under the wide night sky, two strangers brought together by chance and courage. The road ahead was unclear, but it was open. Mara looked at the trunk, then at the man who had lifted it without question. For the first time since arriving in town, she felt that her story had not ended. It had only turned a page. The road away from the depot was quiet, lit only by the moon and a few distant lamps from the town. Tom walked ahead, carrying the trunk with steady arms. Mara followed a few steps behind, her thoughts louder than the night around her. Every sound felt sharp, every step uncertain. She wondered if she had made the right choice by walking away with a man she barely knew. Tom led her to a small wagon tied near a fence. He placed the trunk carefully in the back and secured it with a rope. His movements were slow and respectful, never rushed. When he turned back to Mara, he spoke again, reminding her that she could still change her mind. The words were gentle, not empty. Mara looked at the town behind her. The depot stood silent now, a dark shape against the sky. Going back meant waiting for a train and returning to a life that felt smaller than before. Going forward meant trust, risk, and a future she could not see clearly. She took a deep breath and nodded. She said she would go with him for now. They rode in silence for a while. The wagon moved smoothly over the dirt road, guided by the slow steps of the horse. Mara watched the land stretch out before them. Fields and open space replaced the tight walls of the depot. The air felt cleaner, lighter. Tom broke the silence by telling her about the land. He spoke of long days, changing weather, and work that never fully ended. He did not make it sound easy or grand. He spoke honestly, as if he expected no praise. Mara listened closely. She had worked hard before. The idea of honest labor did not frighten her. She asked him why he helped her. The question had been waiting inside her since the moment he lifted the trunk. Tom thought for a moment before answering. He said he believed no one should be left behind when they came with hope. He said he knew what it felt like to be forgotten. That was all. They reached the ranch as night deepened. A small house stood near a wide field, with a barn not far away. A lantern hung by the door, casting a warm glow. The place was simple, but it felt lived in and cared for. Tom helped Mara down from the wagon. He showed her inside the house. It was clean and modest, with wooden floors and a small table near the window. A kettle rested on the stove. Nothing was fancy, but everything had a purpose. He showed her a small room where she could rest. He placed her trunk near the wall and told her she could arrange it however she liked. He then stepped back, giving her space. He said he would sleep in the other room. Mara thanked him again. The word felt too small for what she felt, but it was all she had. When Tom left, she sat on the bed and finally allowed herself to breathe fully. The room was quiet, safe. She touched the trunk and opened it, checking that everything was still there. It was, just as she left it. Sleep did not come easily. Her mind replayed the day over and over. The letter. The depot. The man who claimed her as his wife in front of strangers. She did not know what that meant yet. She only knew that she had been treated with care, not control. Morning came softly. Light filled the room, and birds sang outside. Mara rose and stepped out into the main room. Tom was already awake, preparing a simple breakfast. He greeted her with a nod and asked if she had slept well. She said she had rested enough. They ate together in quiet comfort. Tom spoke about the day ahead. He said there was no rush. She could take time to decide what she wanted. He said the town was not far, and she could visit if she wished. He reminded her again that she was free. Mara felt something shift inside her. No one had spoken to her this way before, with such steady respect. She asked if she could help with chores. Tom smiled slightly and agreed. They worked side by side through the morning. Mara learned how to feed the animals and clean the barn. The work was physical, but it felt grounding. Tom showed her patiently, never making her feel small for asking questions. As the sun rose higher, Mara felt a sense of purpose return. Her hands were busy, her mind clear. She was no longer waiting. She was doing. During a break, they sat near the fence and drank water. Mara looked out at the land and realized she did not feel like a guest. She felt like someone who belonged, at least for now. Tom spoke then, more seriously. He said that the words he used at the depot were meant to protect her, not bind her. He said if she ever chose to leave, he would help her. He would not hold her with promises made in haste. Mara listened carefully. She believed him. She could see it in his actions, not just his words. She told him about her past, about the choices that led her here. She spoke of fear and hope, of wanting a place where she could grow. Tom listened without judgment. When she finished, he simply said she was welcome to stay as long as she needed. The day moved on, calm and steady. As evening approached, Mara realized she was no longer thinking about the train or the return trip. She was thinking about tomorrow. That night, as she stood outside looking at the stars, she felt something new. It was not love or certainty. It was possibility. Her story was no longer something others decided for her. It was becoming her own, one honest day at a time. Days passed slowly on the ranch, each one bringing a new rhythm to Mara's life. She woke early with the light and slept when the land grew quiet. The work was steady and honest. Feeding animals, cleaning tools, helping in the small garden. Her body grew stronger, and her thoughts felt clearer than they had in a long time. Tom treated her with the same calm respect every day. He never acted as if she owed him anything. He asked before making decisions that affected them both. When people from town visited, he introduced her by name, not by title. That mattered to her more than he knew. The town itself was small but watchful. People noticed Mara. They whispered, not with cruelty, but curiosity. A woman who arrived alone and stayed. A cowboy who claimed her at the depot. Stories traveled fast. Mara felt their eyes when she walked through the market or stood near the well. At first, the looks made her uncomfortable. She kept her head down and spoke little. But Tom never rushed her. He walked beside her, not in front. When questions came, he answered simply and moved on. His calm made the whispers lose their power. One afternoon, an older woman from town approached Mara while Tom spoke with another rancher. The woman's face was lined, but her eyes were kind. She asked Mara if she was happy. The question surprised her. Mara thought carefully before answering. She said she was learning. The woman smiled and nodded, as if that was enough. Back at the ranch, Mara spent time fixing small things in the house. A loose shelf, a cracked chair. She made the space feel more like her own. Tom noticed but did not comment. He only thanked her quietly. As the weeks passed, Mara realized she was no longer counting days. She was living them. Her laughter returned in small moments. A shared joke during work. A quiet meal after a long day. Silence that felt comfortable instead of heavy. One evening, a strong storm rolled across the land. Wind pushed against the house, and rain fell hard. Mara felt a familiar fear rise in her chest. Storms once meant danger where she came from. Tom noticed her tension. He spoke calmly, explaining how the house was built strong. He stayed nearby, not crowding her, just present. They sat at the table as the storm passed, listening to the rain. Slowly, her fear eased. That night, Mara realized trust had grown between them without her noticing. Not sudden or loud, but steady. A few days later, Tom told her about a letter he had written but never sent. It was a letter meant for a woman he once hoped to marry. Life had changed before it could happen. He did not speak with regret, only honesty. He said he shared this because he believed in truth. Mara listened, touched by his openness. She shared something too. She told him how being returned at the depot made her feel like she had no value. Saying it aloud lifted some of its weight. Tom looked at her then and said quietly that value was not something others could take away. The words stayed with her long after. As summer moved forward, the ranch began to thrive. Crops grew well, animals stayed healthy. Hard work paid off. Mara felt pride when she looked across the land. She had helped build this season. One morning, Tom asked if she wanted to ride with him to check the far fence line. She agreed. The ride was long, filled with open sky and wide land. They spoke about small things and then deeper ones. Dreams, fears, simple hopes. Mara admitted she did not know what she wanted her future to look like. Tom said that was all right. He said life often revealed itself slowly. They stopped at a hill and looked out over the land. Mara felt a quiet peace settle inside her. For the first time, she was not running towards something or away from something. She was standing still, choosing. That evening, back at the house, Mara sat alone for a while. She thought about the choice before her. Staying, leaving, defining her life on her own terms. When Tom returned, she told him she wanted to stay. Not because she felt she had to, but because she wanted to try building something real. Tom did not celebrate or rush forward. He thanked her for trusting him. The night felt different after that. Not louder or brighter, just deeper. Two people choosing honesty over fear. Mara went to bed knowing that her story was no longer shaped by rejection or chance. It was shaped by patience, respect, and her own voice. The past no longer held her. The future no longer frightened her. And for the first time, home felt like a place she helped create. The change in Mara's life did not arrive all at once. It came slowly, like morning light spreading across the land. Days on the ranch continued with steady work, shared meals, and quiet understanding. What once felt uncertain now felt familiar. Mara moved through the house with ease. She knew where everything belonged and added small touches that made the space warm. A cloth on the table. Flowers placed near the window. These were simple things, but they made the house feel alive. Tom noticed the change in her. She carried herself differently now. Her steps were confident, her eyes steady. She no longer felt like a guest waiting for permission. She was part of the place. The town also began to change how it saw her. People greeted her by name. They asked for her help or advice. The story of the depot faded into the past, replaced by the present she was building. One afternoon, Mara received a letter. It came from her old town. The words inside were filled with concern and questions. Reading it brought back memories, some warm and some painful. She held the letter for a long time before setting it aside. That evening, she told Tom about it. She said she could return if she wanted. She said she had a choice now. Tom listened and nodded. He said whatever she decided, he would respect it. Mara slept on the thought. By morning, her answer was clear. She did not need to go back to prove anything. Her life was here, growing with each day. She shared her decision with Tom. He smiled, not with relief, but with understanding. They went back to their work, side by side. As the season shifted, the ranch prepared for change. Repairs were made. Plans were discussed. For the first time, those plans included both of them. Not spoken as a promise, but as a shared direction. One evening, Tom asked Mara to walk with him to the edge of the field. The sky was wide and clear. He spoke honestly, as he always did. He said that what began as a choice to protect her had become something deeper. He said he respected her strength and her kindness. Mara listened, her heart steady. She spoke too. She said she had arrived with fear but found respect. She said she trusted him. Trust mattered more to her than grand words. They stood together as the sun lowered, not rushing the moment. When Tom asked if she wished to build a life with him by choice, she answered yes. The word felt strong and true. Their decision was shared quietly. There was no crowd or celebration. The ranch continued its rhythm. Yet everything felt different. More grounded. More certain. In time, the town came to know them as partners. They worked together, faced challenges together, and supported one another. Life was not without difficulty, but it was honest. Mara never forgot the day at the depot. It remained a part of her story, but not the center of it. What mattered more was what followed. The choices she made. The courage she discovered within herself. Tom remained steady as ever. He listened, learned, and grew. He never claimed more than Mara was willing to give. That balance became the strength of their bond. Years later, people would still speak of how they met. They would say it was fate or chance. Mara knew better. It was choice. One moment at a time. She had arrived with a trunk and a fragile hope. She stayed with dignity, work, and trust. The land reflected her journey. From open ground to a place of growth. On a quiet morning, Mara stood at the fence, watching the sun rise. The ranch stretched before her, full of life and promise. Tom joined her, and they stood in silence. She no longer felt like someone waiting to be chosen. She had chosen herself, and in doing so, found a partner who honored that choice. Her story did not begin at the depot. It did not end there either. It continued, steady and strong, built on respect, courage, and a future she claimed as her own.